Mounce, BBG, chapter 21, sentence 6. All right, start with the and. Um, then you look a little bit over here and you see that the auton's got that accusative ending, so you're probably looking at a direct object. So then you move back to your verb and say, subject's probably built into the verb. And then you say, well, okay, what do I know about this verb? What I see is what looks like an augment, but hopefully you look far enough to say, well, okay, well, then I got this eta though. And if I think about what verb this comes from, I'll probably recognize it as ep erotao, where ep is actually a prefix from epi. And then I would have an epsilon here, but the fact that it's an eta tells me that that's where your augment is. So that should be a help for you. And then you say, okay, then I recognize from eperotao, contract verb. I see the augment. I see that it's probably present stem. So I'm going to look again in that top right quadrant of the verb paradigm and say, okay, augment present stem tells me I'm looking at imperfect, but then I still got to figure out the ending. And is that alpha some kind of an ending, or what else is it doing? You go back to your lexical form and say, well, wait a minute, what did I memorize? I memorized eperotao, contract verb, so alpha doesn't give me the ending, so I've got no ending. So then you can say, well, the only one that has no ending in that top right quadrant, if I've got an augment, is the third singular. So, then you can run with he was asking, and he was asking him, or and he began asking him, depending on how you want to play with the sort of the syntax of that verb. But for our intents and purposes, let's just run with, translating it as a simple imperfect, and he was asking him. And then you have the quotation, opening the quotation. And of course, as soon as you hear the verb ask, you're probably thinking, oh, I ought to be out looking for a question. Well, then you've got the T. As soon as you see the accent, you know it's going to be interrogative. Then you'll run down here and you see the question mark, and you know for sure it's interrogative. So this whole sentence is going to be a question to go along with that verb that's in the first clause. And then you say, what, why, or who kind of thing, if you don't know any better. And then you say name, and then, then you got a dative down here and you say to you. So let's, think about what kind of question you would be asking someone. And, why is a name to you? Who is a name to you? What is a name to you? Well, okay. Even if I don't know the expression, if I can run with what is a name to you, that's pretty close. And I would tell you that in a lot of languages, that's the way, when we ask what is your name, we treat the your as simply a possession. The person possesses the name. But in a lot of languages, the idea is more, you were given a name, so it's the idea is what name was given to you. So in many languages, you'll actually see this sort of dative idea as an expression, or what to us is an expression, but it's simply the way that it collocates. That when you're talking about what is your name, Greek and many other languages are going to put the your. It's really more the idea of to you, what name was given to you. So obviously, we don't talk about it that way. So when you translate it into English, you're going to run with it simple English, treat it as an expression, and run with what is your name. To make a long story long. Sorry about that, but again, what is a name to you? What is your name? Question mark. And then you run into the second part, and it says and. Here you've got a dative again, so you're going to think about the subject being built into the verb. This is easy enough because you're hopefully very familiar with lege from Lego. So he says, and he says to him, right? That's very easy. Then you got the quotation mark again, and here's his quote. Legion, hopefully you recognize this as a proper name, and it's legion. you know, and I'm guessing you probably know where this comes from in the Bible, so it's not a big deal. But then legion, a name to me. All right. And again, with this whole idea of the way that it collocates, and hopefully you'll remember that in the future, that that's just a collocation thing that a lot of languages do. But for our purposes, just translate it the English way and say something like legion is my name. The equative verb is ellipsed. So you remember ellipsis, and you know, when you have an equative verb that just drops out often, and that's what we have here. So legion is my name because, and the reason that legion is my name is because, and here's one where you might have some problems, and we've seen something like this before. You know, you have this adjective, and you might say, well, okay, substantival adjective, many we are, right? Because many we are. Uh, well, you know, really though, what you'd be saying is many are, if this is, you know, many people or many men are, if you're going to treat this as a subject. But really, as soon as you say many we are, you've already made this a predicate adjective. You already have, okay? Whether you recognize it or not. So, you know, moving back to it again, what you're going to want to do is build the subject into that verb. And as you've seen many times before, when you have an adjective like this, and especially when you have an equative verb, you treat this as your predicate adjective and just say we are many. And of course, we are many is, you know, makes perfect sense, allows Eckman to be a transitive verb, which is what we would expect and what we would look for and want. Again, if you did with, you know, many men are or many people are, you're left with no object there with a transitive verb. So, you know, you help yourself by treating this as a predicate adjective, and by knowing to do that. So, running back one more time. And he was asking him, what is your name? And he says to him, legion is my name because we are many.